wacky weather today. Sunny here, but it's raining in other parts. I guess it's nice, you have some sunlight and not the extreme winds. And what's going on today? I guess there was an official leak of sort in terms of retailers accidentally releasing the DJI Mini 3 Pro. We knew this was coming, we've seen leaked photos, but these are, I guess, official marketing materials as well. There's listings of things like the specs and the price. So let's try to dive into this and see what's happening, huh? So what happened? It seemed like it started with this Dutch retailer where they first listed all the DJI, I guess, Mini 3 Pro pictures, and here the price, it says what, 829 euros for this bundle here? Now the details that was released here seems kind of interesting if everything's accurate anyways. So first there's two bundles, which isn't too surprising, where it seems like you can get one with the drone itself and a more standard controller, and the other one would come with a smart controller of sort, if that's what you want to call it. So in terms of the specs itself, it has what, just trying to put this all together here, like a CMOS sensor, 1.3, aperture, 1.7, with a pixel size of about what, 2.4 micrometers of sort, and it records in things like 4K and all that. And in terms of things like a zoom, it uses digital zoom apparently, just from what I gather, is about 4 times. And one thing it seems like they're kind of pushing is the vertical video mode. I guess that would be more for things, for example, if you want to create quick Instagram story type of videos, YouTube Shorts, or a TikTok. Apparently for the picture too, it does like what, 48 megapixel RAW? If that's accurate anyways, on top of things like the 4K shooting and all that. So I think that actually sounds pretty good actually for like a little tiny drone in general. Now usually for these types of micro drones, you would expect them to cut corners like no obstacle sensors in order to keep the weight down, but apparently there are obstacle sensors on this drone. I personally don't care too much usually because I just fly like what, cinematically and all that, but I guess for people who want a peace of mind, like an extra blanket of security, I guess that's good for them. And it has like what, OcuSync 3.0, various, I guess, modes like master shots, panoramic modes and all that. So again, I guess more for people if they want those types of features. Now this is one of the interesting details, if this is accurate, on how this drone actually might not be under 250 grams depending on what battery you use, which is kind of interesting because at first I was reading this drone has a 34-minute flight time and then the other one says 47-minute flight time. Still made me wonder what's going on here. Is this lost in translation or something? But apparently there's 2 different types of batteries that you could use. The one that would enable you to fly for about 34 minutes, they say that would enable the drone to be under 250 grams. Whereas the Pro one, if that's what you want to call it, would enable 47 minutes of flight time, and that would make it over 250 grams, which defeats the purpose of a micro drone per se, but I guess depending on what you're using it for, maybe it would be beneficial. I guess as an example, in terms of things like regulations, most places where when it comes to indoor flights, there's no restrictions per se, in a sense of, oh, you gotta worry about getting this and that permission. Whereas with this, you would actually be able to fly, I guess, longer with a bigger battery life, so you might as well. So I can imagine in that sense it would be good. That's actually not out of the ordinary. For example, even with the previous Minis in different countries, actually they have different batteries and weight. For example, like in Japan, actually it's lighter because they have to deal with the threshold that's actually a little bit more strict than most places in order to keep the weight down even more. So it makes you think too, in terms of all these drones, if you want to reduce the weight, a lot of people would say sacrifice this or that in terms of, I guess you could say, functionalities, whereas in this case, it could be just the battery in general. So overall, we know how the drone looks like, we know the basic specs and the price point. Would this be on your buy list? Was there something holding you back still? I would say in terms of competitors, probably the closest one so far would be the Autel Nano Plus, for example. That would probably be in direct competition with this, and we don't really know in terms of performance because ultimately it comes down to people need to get it in their hands to start testing this out. And the last thing I read quickly, which is kind of interesting, apparently the stock of Netflix dropped like crazy because there was a huge drop in subscriptions, and because of that, I guess they're thinking of changing their business model in some aspects. Like this one says, Netflix rocked by subscriber loss may offer cheaper ad-supported plans. Netflix Inc. said inflation, the war in Ukraine, and fierce competition contributed to a loss of subscribers for the first time in more than a decade and predicted deeper losses ahead, marking an abrupt shift in fortune for a streaming company that thrived during the pandemic. The company said it lost 200,000 subscribers in its first quarter, falling well short of its forecast of adding 2.5 million subscribers. Suspending services in Russia after the Ukraine invasion took a toll, resulting in the loss of 700,000 members. Just imagine that, because it says Wall Street sent Netflix's stock tumbling 26% after the bell on Tuesday and erased about $40 billion of its stock market value. Since it warned in January of a weak subscriber growth, the company has lost nearly half of its value. Holy cow, $40 billion in just like that in a day or so? Wow, that's nuts. Although another interesting point about this, you could say it's about things like the economy, why people aren't spending, or at the same time things like the war. But the other perspective from what I'm reading is how people are, I guess, not being in tune as much with the content they're making, which some people feel, I don't know, maybe they're too political or something like that. That seems to be the case for a lot of companies, right? So it makes me wonder if politics or whatever has a role in this as well. But either way, that's a huge loss. Make me wonder whether or not people would accept that. You're paying for the service and you're seeing, I guess, more ads as if it's traditional TV afterwards. Like everyone is kind of going back to traditional media if you think about it. So it'll be interesting to see how it turns out ultimately. If there was ever any question, yes, they do call for you when they recognize you. Alright, see you guys later.